use of fertilizers have over time and more so in recent years led to environmental concerns, and we are going to discuss those briefly in this module. Backing up to the beginning, synthetic chemical fertilizers. And synthetic chemical would generally be something that's manufactured, nitrogen through the Haber-Bosch process, phosphorus and potash through mining and combining potash rock with sulfuric acid. Synthetic chemical fertilizers were one of the first steps. Hybridization and breeding was probably number one, followed by fertilizer in increasing world food production. And again, remember that corn graph, stable till 1940 and then increasing, and fertilizer was one of those things that have increased that production. And in fact, as we were looking at alleviating world hunger in the 1940s and 50s, one of the things that was really emphasized was fertilization, along with genetics. There have been concerns about phosphate and potash sources reaching their end. This is sort of like the peak oil concern, that we're using too much phosphorus fertilizer and that in the end we will run out of phosphates. There are also environmental concerns in both phosphates and water supplies, and if you want to hear one recently, it's Lake Erie. Phosphates moving into the water supplies up there, and nitrogen in water supplies as well. Illinois, Iowa, Maryland, those are all a concern, where we have nitrates moving from agricultural land into waters, and then having some concerns about human health, but also in the case of Illinois, Iowa, anything that flows down the Mississippi leading to the dead zone down in the Gulf of Mexico. So that is a concern. To understand those concerns, we have to have a little bit of understanding of the chemical process or the nitrogen cycle. And what happens is that nitrogen moves, it moves in both into air and water bodies, and that again is an environmental concern, and the way it usually moves is in the form of nitrates. Unfortunately, nitrates are also one of the major ways that plants take up nitrogen. Some of the more stable, or the forms that stay within the soils easier, organic nitrogen and ammonium, convert to nitrates, and those nitrates then are taken up by plants. For example, organic nitrogen will not be taken up into plants. We need it in some other form, and when it's in those other forms, it is a concern for moving out of the soils, into the air, into water bodies, and causing environmental issues. One of the things, and this slide shows some of the recent work. This is by Dr. Gentry and others here at the University of Illinois. It shows red bars that they're looking at tile-drained water, or testing the water from tiles within fields. And you can see here, in this case, they're looking at nitrate loads from corn, and they're looking at it with 100% of the nitrogen applied in the fall, 50% in fall, 50% else the other time, and 100% in spring. You can see that in each year, red, blue, red, green, it moves down as you apply it in the spring. However, I would also note, look at 2019. That happened to be a very wet year, and even the spring applied was much higher than all the other 2017, 2018, maybe not the 2017 fall applied, but very close, and 2018, 2019. Weather plays a role in that as well. So it's not only nitrogen applied, but weather has an impact there as well. In any case, you will hear about this in news. It is a real concern, and it will likely become more of a concern in the future.